Hello everyone, welcome back to Pega tutorials. Today I'll be going to explain the registration module. Okay, we will be going to look at the registration process or the registration module. So let's say for example, here in this case, I had a case type called employee case type. I mean LMS case type. Yeah, you could see it's not a case type, it's an application. LMS is an application. Inside this application, I had a case type called leave request. Now in this leave request case type, I have defined a stage called identify user. Now in this particular stage, you could see there are two processes I have defined. One is authenticate user and the other one is create a new account. So in this process, you could see there is a step I have defined, which is your register. Now the employee, let's say for example, here the employee is a new employee. So we have to go and create a new account for the new employee, right? So the employee has to register himself. So we have to collect the data from the employee and we have to save the data into the database. Okay. So for that, I'll be going to create a data type called employee data type, where I will define all the fields which are related to the employee data type. Okay. So now let us get started with our registration module. Okay. As part of that, I'll be going to define a data type. So what is the data type I'm going to define right now? I will be going to define something called employee. So let's see how to add a data type now. I'm going to add a data type. Now let me name the data type as employee here. Okay. Yeah. Now you see whenever you create a data type in the background, actually a class gets generated. What is that class is going to be generated? Employee class, right? And this employee class will be extending your data class itself, right? So employee is a data class. Let us submit it now. Okay, right. We are done with the data type creation. So once after the data type creation is done, then we go and add the fields into the data type. Okay. So the employee related fields like employee ID, employee name, right? His email address, everything. Okay. Let us add fields which are related to the employee. We have an option called add field here, right? On the right side. So let us use this option to add the fields. See, whenever we add a field, right, in the background, what happens? A property gets created in the employee class. Okay. So let's say I'm specifying the field name as employee ID. Okay. Let us submit and add another field. Now let us have the employee name. Okay. Employee name. Next, let us have another field, which is your employee email address. Okay. Employee email address. And let us also have employee date of birth. Date of birth. Let me choose the type as date only. Okay. So these are the fields which are more enough for us. Let's also collect the mobile number from the employee. So for that, let me add one more field here, which is phone. And let me select here the type as phone itself. Okay. Yeah. Submit. That's it. So we are done with the fields. And you know that whenever you add a field in the background, what happens? See, whenever you add a data type, a class has got generated or not. And inside the class, all these properties gets generated. Okay, now you can see the class. Let me open the class in the App Explorer. Show in App Explorer we have, right? Let us click on this option here. Now, once you click on this option, you could see we have got a class called employee. Now, inside that class, if you see under the data model category, under the property rule type, you could see all the rule instances. I mean, property rule instances, right? So whatever the properties that we have added, all those property rule instances we could see here, right? Now, if you look at, I mean, any data table which has got created for this class means by default, when we create the data type, they got mapped with a default table called pr underscore other. Now let's check whether it has got mapped with pr underscore other table or not. So how do you check generally? So let us right click on the class, click on definition, okay, and let's scroll down. You could see if you look at what is the type of the class here, concrete, right? So obviously it should have a mapping table for this class. Now when you scroll down, you could also see there is an option called test connection, right? Now let me click on the test connection option here. Once I click on the test connection option, here we can observe that there is a class called employee, which is mapped to a table called pr underscore other table. The data is the schema. Inside the schema, you will find this particular table. Okay. Yeah. So it has got mapped to the default table, but now I want to go and create a dedicated table for my data type. So how do you go and create a dedicated data type? And meanwhile, if you look at here, the class is also having a key. So this is nothing but your class key here. As of now, we don't have anything, right? So let's do one thing. First, we will go and configure the source for this data type. Okay. So let's go to the records tab of this data type. Here we have an option of configuring the source, right? So let's click on the configure source. So whenever we configure the source, so what happens in the background, a table gets generated, a physical table. Okay. And that physical table should have which column as the primary key column. So we want to have employee ID as the primary key column. Okay. So let us choose this employee ID as the primary key column over here. I have selected. Okay. And meanwhile, when you scroll down, you could see if you wish to generate a data pages, you could see we have got single data page, a list data page, and a savable data page. See, all these data pages also getting generated. So not only the table, along with the table, your data pages gets generated, right? And the database also you could see customer database, right? So now let's go and click on submit. Once you click on submit, yeah, once you submit, so we can also view what all the rules that are getting generated in the background. So we can view it. So let's scroll down. You see there is a checkbox called view details checkbox here. Let us click this checkbox and let's scroll down. You could see that a table is getting generated, right? Employee table is getting generated. Okay. And you could see there is a mapping rule also getting generated. Okay. A report definition rule, a data page, a single data page, a list data page, a savable data page, right? All these are getting generated in the background. Okay. And if you look at this mapping rule, let me open this mapping rule here. Now, what will be there in this mapping rule? Obviously, class will be mapped with a table, which is a class. Here, the employee is the class, which has mapped to which table? Employee table, right? In which database? Customer database. Okay, so that's how you can look at the mapping rule. Now, and you could see the other rules like your report definition, your data pages also got generated, right? Yeah. So now let us close this. I'm done with the source part. I have configured the local source. Okay. Now you should see the columns over here. Employee ID, phone number, date of birth, email address, name. Let's say if I want to arrange these columns according to my wish, then what you need to do, you need to go to your actions menu here, edit the columns. After employee ID, I wish to have employee name. Okay. After employee name, I wish to have the email address as the next column, and then phone number. And then date of birth, and then finally, let's say and then finally, let's say phone number. Okay. So you can change the order here. You see, the order will get changed here. Right. Now let me click on save. Now, why we created this table? Because whenever the employee registers, while registering, he will be providing his, let's say, here the employee ID, you can either generate it automatically or you can collect from the employee also, whatever it may be. Okay. So you collect the name from the employee, his email address, his date of birth, his phone number, everything. So whatever the data that you collect from the employee, that data needs to be saved here, right? Yes. So let us try to achieve that particular requirement. So how I am going to achieve that particular requirement? Yeah, that is the thing now we have to look at, right? Yeah. So this is the data class which we had. Let me pin this class here. I have pinned it. Now let me go to the case type now. Okay, I need to define the view to collect the uh, employee details, right? So on the register step, let us configure the view so that the view will be helpful for us to collect the employee details, right? So let's configure the view here. Click on configure view. Now we will go and add a field here. Okay, let us go and add a field. What is that field? Employee is the field. Employee is the field I am going to create. And the type of this field is, I'm going to select it as embedded data option. You see, there is something called embedded data here. Yeah, embedded data. And we already have created a data type, right? Data type is nothing but here data object itself. What is the data object we have created? Employee data object. And coming to options here, how many employee details that you are going to capture? You are going to capture only one employee information at one time, right? At one go. So let us go with this single record option. Okay. Let me click on submit. So we were creating a field with the name called employee itself. A field here in the sense here, a page property we were creating. So this is nothing but a page property. We are creating this page property, page in the sense object, right? This object we are creating for which class? For an employee class itself. And now let us go and define the view. Okay. So let us create a new view. Let us click on open here to create a new view. Let us give the name of the view. So let's say here, I'm giving the name as register itself. Okay. Yeah. Click on create. Okay. Now this particular register view should have all the fields whatever we added previously in the data type, right? So it should be automatically populated over here, right? They all get populated here. You see, all are getting populated here, right? Okay. So now we are done with the view creation. Let me click on submit. Okay. And we will test whether the view has created properly or not. Let me save and run this case type. Okay. I'm just going and creating the case for this case type now. See, the case got generated. Now let's click on create button here. First, we had actually login step, right? You could see that we had a login step, and that actually it is coming over here. But I did not configure any view for that. Okay, I configured the view for register step. So let us advance the case now. Once you advance the case, it takes me to that register form. So this is where you could see, right? Hmm. I'm getting all the fields. So I need to provide the data over here. So let's say I'm providing the employee ID as 1001 and the name of the employee as, let me give the name of the employee as Rahul. Okay. And the email address as rahul@gmail.com, let's say. Okay. And let us choose the date of birth. I'm going to give some date of birth here. Let me, yeah, let me select some date of birth here and then mobile number. Let me provide. I have given some mobile number. Now, actually, this data, whatever you entered, this data actually, it needs to be stored into a table, right? So the table, what actually we have created. So this is where it should be stored, right? So now to store the data, actually, if you look at this data, when I click on submit, okay, it gets stored where exactly? It gets stored exactly in your work table. Okay, it gets stored in your work table. But the point is, we want to store this data in our dedicated table, right? So before submitting this information, let me click on the save button. So whenever you click on the save button, so the data you could see it has populated on the clipboard. Now let's click on the clipboard here. Now let us see the clipboard structure first. Okay. Now what is that case that you have created? And the case has case ID here, right? L-1001. So you could see the case ID here. Now under user pages, whenever you create a case in the background, an object gets created. So what is that object here? Which is nothing but py work page. Py work page is nothing but object in Pega, right? So this object got created for which class? For leave request class. You created case for which case type? Leave request case type. So an object has got created. Now under this object, see here, previously, if you look at, I configured the view by adding a field, right? I was just going and adding the field. This field, as I said, it's nothing but a page property, right? Now this page property got created inside which class? So this page property actually it got created inside your leave request class. So if you look at, okay, if you look at here, let me go to App Explorer. Under App Explorer, you could see this class called leave request. Under data model, there is a property called employee. See, employee property got created or not? It is of which property it is. It's a page property. Let me click on the employee here. You could see that it's a page property. And this page property got created for which class? Data class. Which is a data class here? Employee data class itself, right? Yeah. Now the point is, now the point is, so whenever you create a case, so you created a case for which case type? Leave request. And leave request is having in the background a class called leave request class, right? Inside the class itself, now we have this page property. So in the clipboard, if you look at the structure, see under the py work page, you need to find that employee page. See, right? Yeah, now this employee page got created for which class? For employee class itself. Now let me click on this employee page. Now the data, whatever you have entered in the form, that data has populated onto which page? Onto the employee page itself, right? This entire data is available on this employee page itself. So you see here the clipboard page, py work page dot. So employee is nothing but an embedded page, right? It's an embedded page. Okay. Now we want to save this information where into the employee table. So how do you go and save this information into the employee table? So for that, we require a data page. So I'm going to make use of something called savable data page. Okay. So if you see here, whenever we configure the source for this employee data type, the data pages got generated or not? Yes. You could see there are three data pages, but which is the data page will be helpful for me? helpful for me, savable data page. So this is the data page I will be using to populate the data which is there on the clipboard. So what ultimately that I'm going to do, I will copy this data where exactly to my data page. I have to load this information to my savable data page so that I can save this data page to the database table itself, which is a database table, employee database table. So let us open this data page now. Okay, let us open this data page now. Now, if you look at, you know that the data page is going to have the structure of the, I mean, the structure, object type, the scope, right, and the data source, everything you could see here inside the data page. If you look at the structure, you have the object type, the mode you have, the scope you have, the data source you have. But this, but actually, if you look at the mode, if you see here, it is savable, right? Yes. Now, now coming to this data source, if you look at by default, you have something called lookup. But instead of using lookup, I mean, our goal is what? We want to store the information of an employee, right? Into our dedicated table itself. Now, but the data actually it is available on which page? On the embedded page. Okay, this is where the data is available. Now we need to copy this data to your data page. So for that, what I'll do is I'll go to the data page and I'll use something called data transform to copy the data. You know that, right? We use the data transform to copy the data, right? Let us use the data transform. Now let me name this data transform as copy employee details or EMP details. Okay. Now let me create this data transform over here. Yeah, I have specified the name of the data transform as copy EMP details. Now let's go ahead and create this data transform. Okay. Now into this data transform, what actually we have to do it? That is what we have to see now. I need to copy, right, the info. What is that info? This is where the info I had it. On this p by workpage.employee page, I had this information. So now what I'll do is I'll define in the pages and to refer that py work page here in my data transform. Obviously, I can't directly go and refer in this way, right? I can't say like py work page dot employee, right? I mean, if I try to say like this, I mean, when I try to say this data transform, see, it says the target field cannot be empty because here I need to specify the target field. So where you want to copy into which, so this is the source. Okay, what is the target here? The target is nothing but my data page, right? I need to copy the data into the data page. Now, obviously, you're calling the data transform from the data page. So the primary context here is nothing but your data page itself. So here I'll use a keyword called primary itself. Okay, and let me click on save now. Okay, when I click on save, see here it is unable to figure out this employee property, right? So it says that mm, invalid page reference. So because it is not able to figure out this particular page. Now I need to define that page here. So the page is py work page, and this py work page is of which class? Anyhow, in the clipboard you have seen, right? This py work page is of which class? A leave request class. So what you can do, you can just go and specify the class itself here, right? So ABC hyphen, let me check for the leave request class here. This is my leave request class. That's it. Now let me click on save. So with that, my data transform got saved here. So what I am doing right now, I am copying the data from this source to this target here. And this data transform I was calling from where? From my data page, which is the data page here, a savable data page, right? Yeah, it's a savable data page. Now, even we can test this. I can unit test this particular savable data page, whether it is copying the data from this particular py work page dot employee to my savable data page or not. I can even test it. How do you test it? Let me click on this data page, go to the actions menu, click on run. Okay. So here you see the run context. Anyhow, I created the case, right? Already this case is having the information. You see, in this case only, I provided this information. That particular information I can use while unit testing my savable data page. So you can use the run context as what? The case whatever you have created. Let me select this case here. And see the employee ID. See this data page actually, just a moment. This data page is having a parameter. This data page is having a parameter over here, right? So now that parameter is not required for us. I mean, we are not going to pass any parameter. We are not trying to retrieve the record, but we are trying to save the record, right? In this case, the parameter is not even required. You can delete this parameter here. Okay, so I deleted the parameter from the data page. Now this time, if you see, let me just cancel this here and let me try to again run this data page. Okay, now you see it's not asking the parameter. Now you need to change the run context to what? To the case. Okay, here I'm actually performing the unit testing. I mean, I just want to check whether it is going and copying the data from that clipboard page to this data page or not. Already the data we have on which context here on the thread context, which is a thread here, nothing but case, right? This is the case, right? Now let's go and run this data page according to this context. Okay, when I run it, now obviously the data page has to be loaded with the information. See, what is that information? It is coming to my data page. I'm getting the employee ID, everything, right? Yes or no? Yes, even you can just go to the clipboard and you can check it. Now in the clipboard, you need to check under data pages, okay, under your thread scope. Do you find something called d underscore employee or not? Where is my data page? See, as the data page mode is savable, right? Obviously, you should find the data page under data pages or user pages category. Obviously, it should be under your user pages category. Savable data pages will be falling under user pages category. Now you just check here, d underscore employee savable data page is coming. Is that data getting copied here or not? Right? So the data, whatever we had under py work page, are we able to copy the data or not? See, this is the page which is having this data, right? This data I was copying to, or I was loading to this page, right? Through the data transform. So I'm successfully able to do that, right? I was able to copy the data. So once you're done with the copying, I mean, I just went and I unit tested it, whether it is working or not. Now let's see how to refer this data page in our case style. Okay, so ultimately we were able to successfully unit test our data page. Now what I'll do is after this step, I will be going to use one of the automation step. I I have one of the automation step called. Let me go and check for the automation step called savable data page here. So let us try to refer that savable data page. So what is that step you have? Savable. Yeah, save data page. Let us use this automation step. So save the data page using the save option specified in it. Let us select this step here. So what actually we are going to do here is we created the savable data page and we want to refer that savable data page in our case type. So here we are calling it. Okay. Here we are calling it. Now once you call it here, what it does, it will go and save the data to your data table itself, which is nothing but your employee. So let me specify the name of the step as save employee. Okay, save employee. Now, what was the data page we had? D underscore employee savable. Let us refer that D underscore employee savable, right? Yeah, that's it. Employee savable. Now save it. That's it. We are successfully able to call. Now this data page gets called and it will submit the data. I mean, it is loading the data. It's loading the data and at the same time, whenever you refer the data page, it will go and call the data transform, and the data transform will go and copy the data from the clipboard to your data page. And then this particular step, what it does actually, it saves this particular save data page step will be going to save your employee data to your table. This is where it is going to store it. Okay. Yeah, that's it. We are done with the configurations actually. So hope I think you're able to understand what all the configurations that I did, right? Yeah. So one is the data transform, which is helpful to me to copy the data from the clipboard to your primary context, in the sense here, nothing but your data page context here. Okay. Nothing but this one, right? So this is the data page context we had. And this data page, actually what we are doing, we were calling from the case type with the help of save data page step itself, right? Okay. So let us go and test it. Okay, let's go and test it whether it's working or not. I will be going to create a new case. Okay, I'll create a new case, save and run. Let us verify whether the data is getting saved into the table or not. Let me click on create and let me advance the case here. Now the employee ID, let me provide it as, let's say, 1001, and the name of the employee is, let's say, Rahul here. Okay, Rahul at the rate, let's say, Gmail address, gmail.com, and the date of birth, let me choose some date of birth here. Okay, so okay, I'm selecting some date of birth and some mobile number. Okay, now let me click on submit. So once you click on submit, what should happen? The next step itself, what we have, saving the data to the data table, right? So now let's go and check. I submitted it. Okay, now we need to check. I submitted the data, and the next step is save employee step we had. Now let's go and see whether the data has got stored here or not. We have to just refresh. Once you refresh, you could see that whether the data is coming over here or not. See, am I able to successfully update this table or not? Or insert the record into this table or not? Right? I was able to do it, right? Yeah. So this is all about your registration module. I hope this particular use case or this particular scenario, it's clear for everyone. So in this particular use case, I have used the data type I have used. I have the used savable data page, right? I have used a data transform, right? All these rules I have used, right? So hopefully you all understood this particular scenario. So going forward, we will also see how to go and validate the user. I mean, let's say for example, a user is trying to log in into the system. If the user is an existing user, then we will allow him to access the application. If he is not an existing user, we will ask him to go and register himself. So that is the use case next I'm planning to cover. So thank you all. See you soon.